you. Those of you here staying in this room, let's take our Bibles. We're going to Revelation 13 and then Daniel chapter 7. We're going to do two different texts here we get started. Daniel 13 and Daniel chapter 7. Let's see how your minds are working. We tried a high-pitched song. Let's try something low. Name some questions parents ask their kids about school. How was their day? Do you have any homework? What'd you learn today? And the answer is nothing. Yeah. So why do we send you to school? Any other questions that come up? Here's what they said. Did you do your reading? How was your day? How did you do on a test? How's your grades? What did you learn today? Do you have any homework? You guys know that. You've been through it. Name something you would not like your spouse to do when you start singing. What's that? Wince? Yeah. Cover their ears? Okay. Yawn? Oh, sing along? Leave the room? Okay. Anything else you don't want your spouse to do? Ask what you're doing. I'm singing, you don't recognize it? Okay. Yawning, to go to sleep, start talking on the phone, cover their ears, walk away, or laugh. Name something that people do that slows down the checkout line at the store. When it says 21 items and they bring 23 items. Yes. What'd somebody say? Coupons do what? Talk on their phone. Drop the stuff in the aisle. Price check. Yeah, here we go. Buy too many items. Read the magazines. Count the exact change. Ask for a price check. Write a check. Talk. Use coupon. Anybody write checks anymore at stores? Yeah. After a week of camping out in a tent or whatever, what luxury at home are you most excited to have again? Hot shower? Air conditioning? That's it? Toilets? Yeah. Okay. Computer? That's not a luxury. That's a burden. Okay. So the AC, the toilet, the TV, the shower, number one was their own bed. Name a place that you are not allowed to make much noise. Church. Church gets picked on all the time. When I'm preaching, you can't make much noise. Library. Congress? Congress does? Really? You ever been visiting to it? Yeah, the lobby, the gallery's supposed to be quiet. Listen, that would be so tough. That would be so tough. Okay. Any place else that's supposed to be quiet? Funeral home, that's a good one. Okay. The office, here's what they said. The courts, the funeral home, the hospital, the movie theater, the church, and the library. Name an evil human being from throughout history. Okay, human being. Hitler is going to be, now these are taken from like surveys, put up the top, basically the top ones that show up typically, and added one. Hitler's always on these surveys. What's that? Pol Pot? He's on a lot of the surveys. I don't know if he's in the top 6. Stalin, he's in the top surveys. Okay, who? Nero is in a lot of them. I'm not remember if you said Mussolini. Any others? Saddam Hussein. Okay, here's what they had. Mao Zedong, Osama bin Laden, Genghis Khan. Anybody know who this is? What character did they make from him? Dracula. Okay, just to let you know, don't tell her. But I misspelled this. Instead of Vlad, I had Val. And so, Val the Impaler. Okay. Stalin, Hitler. Okay, you know more than most people. Who's the worst, most evil character in history? Future history. Not Satan, so we're talking people. Antichrist, the most evil person in all of history is going to be Antichrist. And so what we're coming in Revelation chapter 13, we're coming to the spot where he's going to start being described. In Revelation 13, chapter 12 was about the beast that was called the dragon. Now we're talking about another beast that he says in verse 1, I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. His feet were as that of a bear, his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him power and his seat and great authority. Now, we already know who the dragon is. The dragon in chapter 12 was clearly described as a dragon, or great red dragon, but he was identified as who? Satan, very clearly in chapter 12. So remember, Revelation 13 is built like any stairs are built. It's on previous revelation that were given, just like previous steps. So I suggest to you, let's go back to Daniel, where we start reading a little bit about this character in ancient prophecies, see if there's any parallels, okay, any emphases about this Antichrist person who is mentioned in Daniel 7, Daniel 8, Daniel 9, and Daniel 11. So we're headed all the way back. We stopped last week right in this section where we were saying Daniel 7 talks a little bit about this character, and when he's giving prophecy in the book of Daniel, the Old Testament, and he even gives the identification. And 10 horns, there we go, just like we were talking about in Revelation 13. And of the 10 horns which were in his head, and of the other which came up, before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth, that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld that same horn made war with the saints, prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. Go down a little bit further. He says, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all the kingdoms, and devour the whole world, shall tread it down, break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them. He will be different from the first. He shall subdue 3. He shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change time and laws, and they shall be given into his hands until a time, times, and the dividing of time. That last phrase clearly identifies that we're talking about the last 3.5 years. It puts us in the tribulation period. And so we just pointed out, you guys pointed out, he's part of the great final kingdom. The 4th kingdom in prophecy starts as the 10-nation confederacy. He'll overthrow 3. He's a good orator. He's physically attractive. He makes war with the saints. He has victories over them. He went a little bit further, and he'll speak great words against the Most High, against God. He wears out the saints of the Most High. I am assuming that because of this context in Daniel 7, he's referring in particular to the Jews. Thinks to change the times and the laws. Bob, you suggested that this could be a changing of the Jewish feast days and holidays, which is a possibility. We also said another possibility is changing the work week, which several dictators and evil corrupt systems did try in the past. He's going to be, the people will be given into his hands for 3.5 years. Remember Revelation 12, that it says the temple, the city is all given to the Gentiles for how much? How long? Anybody remember? It was given in months. Revelation, I said 12, Revelation 11, 42 months. Okay, so all of this ties together. Go to chapter 8, and he's again giving some more prophecy. And he mentions this character in chapter 8. It says, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the aggressors are come to their fullest, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. His power shall be what? What do you have? Mighty. But what's the next phrase indicate? What's your Bible say? But not his own power. What's that mean to you? Somebody's giving it to him. Excellent. He shall destroy wonder. Now, this is the King James. I don't know if anybody has another one. He shall destroy wonderfully. What do you have? Fearfully? Okay. Typically, when we think something's wonderful, we think it's great and good. Okay, so the idea is just that he's going to destroy in a tremendous fashion is the idea. Not in a, oh, this is neat seeing him destroy. And he shall, what else? He's going to prosper and practice and shall destroy who? Okay, the mighty people and the who people? Who's that? Who's the holy people? Take this back to Daniel's time. The Jews. Okay, so he's going to be destroying them. And through his policy also he shall cause something to prosper. What do you have? What's that? Shrewdness. Okay, anybody have something different? Deceit. Okay. Shall, in the King James it's craft, to prosper in his hand. He shall magnify who? Himself in his heart. And goes on, it says, he shall also stand up against who? Who's the Prince of Princes? Okay, it's Jesus Christ. But he shall, what's going to happen to him in the end? Okay, he's going to be defeated. And the vision of the evening, in the morning, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we just, fierce countenance is just like, I don't have any other explanation, just that he's going to be intense in what he's doing. Understanding dark sentences, most interpret this or apply it. The idea is he knows deception. He's into intrigue and mystery and deceptions, which makes sense because Thessalonians talks about him being the man of great deceptions. His power shall be mighty, but it's not his own power. Deb, you mentioned that this is given to him by somebody else. He's going to create great devastations. He's going to prosper. He's going to succeed in what he's doing. Okay, so there's a period of time this guy is extremely successful, especially in his attacks against the Jews. As well, he's going to be a master, again, of deceit. He'll magnify himself. He uses promises of peace to destroy people. We know that from the next passage we're looking at. He's going to stand against Christ. He's going to be destroyed. He's going to stand against the Prince of Peace. Shall be broken without hand or human hands. What's that mean? He's going to be broken without hand. No human being can oppose him. Who's it going to take to defeat this guy? Okay, it's got to be Christ, because no human can. In fact, in Revelation 13, we're going to read in a few moments, who can make a war against this fella? So all of this fits together very closely. Daniel chapter 9. Now this one you're real familiar with. Daniel 9 is talking about the last 7-year period. Daniel 9, and we're in the middle of the 70th week is the prophecy, the tribulation period that he's talking about. And he says in verse 26, after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. You're familiar with that. The people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city. The prince that shall come in that verse is referring to Antichrist. What's it mean that the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary? What's he referring to? What event in history? You don't remember? He's saying after Messiah is cut off, there's going to be a destruction of Jerusalem, including the temple. Okay, 70 A.D. when who came and destroyed the Jewish nation? And it was destroyed for hundreds and hundreds of years. No, it wasn't Babylon. That was early. This is 70 A.D. Rome, the Romans came, right. Okay, so it's talking in the middle of this. It's giving some prophecy. Again, it's all future, but we've lived through part of this. Okay, human history is already past. We already talked about this early in this study. Okay, Messiah has been cut off. Jerusalem was destroyed. Okay, and then the end thereof shall be with war, and the end of war of desolations. The Jews were going to go through a time period of persecution. Did that happen historically? Was Messiah cut off not for himself? Yes. Did Jerusalem get destroyed and wiped out? Yes. Did the Jews after that, did they go through extreme war and desolations? Persecution for years. We talked about that. And then it's taking us to the very end, which now is future to us. And he, that is the prince of the people that destroyed the city, and he shall confirm a covenant with many for how long? 1 week. What's that period? That's the tribulation period. And in the middle of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. For the overspreading the abomination, he shall make it desolate. In the middle of the tribulation, he's going to break the treaty, and he's going to do an abomination of desolation in the temple. That is, he's going to desecrate the rebuilt temple. just take this one just real simple. Again, we talked about this weeks ago, that you fully remember. Okay. What nationality is the Antichrist? This is given clearly. He's a prince of the people that destroyed Jerusalem. He's of the Roman descent. So he's somewhere in the European field, somewhere, some way, some shape, tied to them. He is not Jewish. He is, what's the Bible, the opposite of the Jews? He's a Gentile, okay? And so right before he makes a 7-year covenant, he's a Gentile. We know that in the middle of the last 7 years, okay, what we know as tribulation, in the middle of that time, he's going to go into the temple and he's going to create an abomination of desolation. So he's going to do something drastic to disrupt Jewish worship. He's going to take over the temple. Revelation 11, that the temple is turned over to the Gentiles for how many months? 42 months, just what we've mentioned already. Okay, so nobody knows who this guy is until this time that he's going to be revealed, future. Okay, he is totally against God and the Jews. He sets up an abomination of desolation that Jesus referred to. When you see the abomination of desolation, flee, get out of there, because now it's been turned over to the Gentiles for 42 months. He will, if you look at the last phrase, there is going to be desolation poured out upon him. He will be destroyed in the end. Okay, so it's not going to look like everybody's going to say who can make war with him, but he's going to be defeated in the end. Okay, one more text in the book of Daniel, and then we can bring it all together. And again, they don't give all the details, just snippets. Let's go to Daniel 11, jump down to verse 26. And the king shall do what? The king that he's referring to is this Antichrist. What's he going to do? Chapter 11, verse 36. He's going to do according to what? What's that mean? Okay, it doesn't mean he's dedicated to God. What's it mean that this king will do? He's going to do whatever he wants. Who's going to stop him? Okay, nobody for a period of time. Okay, and he shall exalt who? Himself. And he will even magnify himself above who? Okay, above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against. Marvelous again, isn't this idea of wonderful and great and glorious? And he shall speak marvelous. I mean, he's going to be blatantly, boldly speaking things against who? The God of gods, okay? And will he be successful? Will he be successful for a period of time? It says he shall what? He shall prosper until, okay, there's a time limit here. And for that which is determined shall be done. Neither shall he have regard for who? Verse 37. Who doesn't he have any regard for? The God of his fathers. Okay, so this guy is not a traditionalist. This guy is not orthodox. He's not like, okay, involved with some form of Christianity. Europe for the most part was Christian in a bold, very broad sense. So he doesn't follow the ancient system, which is most of the European had that background. And what else in verse 37 that stands out? He doesn't have a desire for, what's that mean? Okay. What's the possibilities that he has no desire for a woman? What are the possibilities?
He has more pleasure out of the power that he has.
What's that?
He has more pleasure in the power that he has.
That's a possibility. It says he has no desire for ladies. No regard for them? Okay, that's great. That's a more excellent translation. Okay, it could be he's gay. Okay, he's homosexual. It could be he's just a eunuch. Okay, he doesn't care about the physical appetite of sex because he's absorbed with himself. Okay, it could be, you said it has no regard for the ladies. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Right. In particular, there are some who say the application of this is he is chauvinistic to the hilt. He has no respect for the female gender. Not the desire in the flesh, but I mean no respect. He's going to basically use the people and abuse the people. So there's multiple possibilities. I don't know which one it is. And he goes on and it says, for he shall, and again it states it again. Who's he going to magnify? The end of verse 37. Okay, why does it keep repeating that he's magnifying himself? What's the author want you to get? Yeah, the author, I'm not trying to be complicated, just, the author wants us to get that this guy is all about who? Yeah, okay. And, and what are rulers supposed to be for? The people. So God is really emphasizing, because God in the way he set up government and organized it, the leaders are to be, he even calls them in Romans 13, what are rulers? They're to be ministers for the people. And God is highlighting this guy is nothing about ministering to anybody else. It's all about himself. In his estate, who's he going to honor? Who's he magnifying besides himself? Okay, the God of the forces, he goes on, and a God whom his fathers knew not shall be honored with gold and silver and precious stones and pleasant things. We know, as we'll see a little bit later on, he's the God of forces. Could be Satan, it could be a military focus. In verse 39, thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. He shall cause them to rule over many and shall divide the land for gain. Taking the first part of verse 39, okay, he shall do in the most strongholds with a strange God. From a Jewish perspective, what is the stronghold? What place is supposed to be our refuge? The temple area, Jerusalem, Mount Zion. Okay, that's supposed to be God's holy place and undiminished in any way and shape. So he's going to be doing something with a strange God. We know who that is. He shall cause them to rule over many and shall divide the land. Here's a suggestion. He's got a lot of cronies, okay? And let's put it in the 42 months. He has a lot of cronies. He takes control of Jerusalem. Remember Revelation 11, that the temple's been measured. It's given to the Gentiles for 42 months. So what does the land is given to them? Could it be that Antichrist is rewarding those who follow him by giving them Jewish territories and lands and possessions because the Jews have evacuated the area? Has that ever happened in history? Okay, that those who prosecute and persecute, they then take the property of those that they've persecuted. Okay, and that's happened to the Jews quite a bit. And at the time of the end shall the king of the north, now this gets into a complicated passage. Okay, at the time of the end, the king of the south shall push at him. The king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, with many ships. He shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. He shall enter also into the glorious land. So in verse 40, do people try to oppose him? Who wins? He does. And then where does he go? When in verse 41, he enters into the glorious land. Who do you know that to be? Okay, he goes into Israel, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hands, and he gives some of them. He shall stretch out his hand upon these countries, even the land of Egypt shall not escape. He shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver and over all the precious things. But tidings out of the east and out of the north trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy. He shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas. Where at in particular? In the, what do you have in verse 45? The glorious holy mountain. What's that? Not Sinai, Mount Zion. Let's keep it with that. So he's going to put his palace in what city? Jerusalem. And yet he shall come to his end, and who's going to come to his rescue? No one. Okay, he's going to be, but before he comes to his end, what does he look like? He's defeated the king of the north. He's defeated the king of the south. He's defeated Egypt. He's basically conquered. Some try to escape, but then he overcomes them. So there's this indication that he is going to be victorious. Previous, what have we heard? He is successful. He is prosperous. He is going to destroy wonderfully. All of this fits together. Again, we can just keep on putting down everything that we just said, that whole ideas, that the regard for deity keeps on coming up. So he's very militaristic, he's successful, he'll have wars with major powers in the Middle East, but he's going to be victorious for a period of time. It keeps on coming up that he is very successful against God, winning, but he's going to be defeated. He's going to be defeated. And so there's the hope that they have. He's going to set his own palace, we already mentioned. He'll become the ruler over that area, and he'll come to an end. So one more text before we go to Revelation and finish and dive into chapter 13. Let's remind ourselves, we looked at this, but it's been weeks since we looked at it. 2 Thessalonians 2. This is the one more New Testament passage that gives us more detail about this guy. And again, we're going to bring everything together, but you have in the back of your mind some of these details. So he's talking about, in verse 3, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come. The people are asking, have we missed the rapture? And he's saying, no, that day shall not come, except there has to be two things that happen. Okay? In that sense, for that day shall not come except there, he's talking about the last days. He says there has to be two things that happen before we get into the last weeks, except there become a falling away first and the man of sin be revealed. Okay? And he describes this man of sin, and he calls him what other name? The son of who? Okay, the son of perdition. Anybody have another word for that? Destruction, lawlessness. Okay, so the idea is this guy is just really corrupt. Verse 4, what does he do? He opposes and exalts. He's exalting himself above what? Do you remember we've already read this? He exalts himself above every god, and he'll even speak things against the Most High. Okay, and so he's against everything that is worship, so that, what does he do? He, as God, sits where? In the temple of God, the abomination of desolation, showing himself that he is what? Okay, that he is God. Okay, so he's doing everything. Now, he goes on and he's talking about this fella, okay? We know that as well he is empowered by Satan, and he's going to add a little bit more details. Jump down to verse 8. The wicked shall be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. And so basically he's talking about this guy is going to have the ability to do wonders and signs. The mystery of iniquity is there. He is working these wonders, showing himself to be God. He deceives the people. Just absolutely deceives people. And then the bottom line is he's going to be destroyed at the Lord's coming, that the Lord will destroy him. So we jump to Revelation 13 with this little tidbits in mind, and we say, okay, what's added in Revelation 13 or expanded or re-emphasized? So you're back in Revelation 13, and we already started with some of the information that's already talked about. He rises up out of the sea of humanity. He's a people. Whereas Satan was seen in heaven, this man's seen coming out of the sea of humanity. They have a lot of similarities. We already pointed out that they both, the beast and the dragon, 7 heads. They both had 10 horns, but the crown number is different. So they're working together, but they're different characters. Again, Satan's the spiritual character. This Antichrist, he is the human character. This is the unholy trinity. Okay, Satan, like God the Father, Antichrist like the Son, and we're going to see next week the false prophet like the Holy Spirit. On the head, in Revelation 13, on the head, each one of the heads are the names of blasphemy, so he's very anti-God. We read that in Daniel. We also see he possesses features of several animals. And these animals are which ones? Which animals does it say in Revelation 13? The leopard, what else? There's a bear, what else? There's a lion, okay? Where have we seen them in prophecy before? Daniel chapter 7. Daniel 7 gives these three characteristics, three animals, and defines them as previous kingdoms. He says there's 4 major kingdoms that come into the world that are universal, according to the prophecy, and they're dealing with the realm of where Jews are and who they have to deal with. And it says there was major world empires. And it says there's going to be a final world empire, and that's going to be this animal that is a blend of the previous ones. So if we were to go back to Daniel 7, you can, but I'm just going to hurry through this. In Daniel 7, it describes those kingdoms with an animal, and then it tells us who the empire is, and then it gives a feature of it. This happens with 3 of them, okay, in the book of Daniel. And so if we were to make the comparison, he says in the book of Daniel that there is, I should have done this backwards. This is in order in Daniel 7, the way he laid it out, it's historically backwards. Okay, so let's deal with the 3rd kingdom. The 3rd kingdom is described as a leopard. What's the leopard's feature? It's fast. He's fast. Okay, so the empire that he's describing in Daniel 7, which the Jews used to when Alexander the Great came to destroy Jerusalem as he conquered the world, they brought this out. They showed him. He said, that's me. So I'm not going to destroy Jerusalem. And so it was the Greek world empire, which its feature, if you understand any history, is they came through, they moved quickly. The other animal is a bear, and the bear is typically, his feature is that he's extremely strong, okay? Great strength. That's Medo-Persia. That was the empire that was number 2. The number 1 empire is the one that's described by a lion. The lion was Babylon very clearly. It's stated in Daniel, you are the lion, when he's talking to Nebuchadnezzar. And it's the king of the beasts. And so historically we have this lion, this bear, this leopard, and he says in the 4th kingdom, which was Rome and then the revived Roman Empire that's going to come with that 10-nation confederacy, why does he say Antichrist is a leopard, a bear, and a lion? These things from the past. Why would he do that? What's that? Yeah, he's a combination of everything from the past. He's their, if we can put it this way, he's their best, and I say that tongue-in-cheek. Whatever their strength is, he possesses all of that. He is the ultimate ruler of where they had, excelling over in strength and speed. He's got it all. They aren't unique to him. He possesses all of their abilities. And so it goes on, and it says in chapter 13, and we're back in Daniel, Revelation, who gives him his power? Satan empowers him. Look at verse 2. The dragon gives him power, his seat, his great authority. It says in verse 4, they worship the dragon which gave power unto this beast. So he's empowered by him. He is given great power. He's given authority. He's going to become a great leader. According to verse 3, who wonders after him? Who? The whole world, okay? The whole world is wondering after him. They're amazed by him. Why? Maybe it's because he's a great orator, his stout look, his seriousness of purpose, all those things, his impressions. And then it goes on and makes this comment. I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to the death. A deadly wound was healed. And all the world is wondering after him. What's that referred to? Now, here's what some of the ancient interpretations were. Some of the ancient interpretations said, well, this is describing that there's a kingdom that he's involved with. The kingdom collapses, and then it rises again. Then ancient writers said, well, no, I think what this means is this is an idea that Judas is going to be resurrected and going to help this guy. Oh, no, I think it means Nero is going to come back to life. Now remember, the people reading this in the first century, their most wicked person that they could think of was Nero. Okay. Then there was some who said this, and this is where we are, where it says, wait, this is Antichrist in the future, and he's going to suffer a fatal wound. But he's going to do what? He's going to come back to life. Okay, and so that gets the world wondering after him. And all this is taking place. I think what it is, personally, is you tie Daniel 11. He is taking control in the middle of the tribulation. He's taking control. He's going to set up he's getting prepared to dominate the world. But he's opposed by the king of the north and the king of the south. He's going to defeat them. And after he defeats them, who's left? Basically nobody. He's in charge now in that region. And at this time, he suffers in those battles mentioned in Daniel 11. He suffers a quote-unquote deadly fatal wound. But then what does he do? Okay. He comes back to life. When he comes back to life, what does the world do? Oh, this guy is powerful. Who can stand against him? What are you going to say if you're people living at that time? He's what? He's God. He's God in the flesh, and he'll walk into the temple and sit in the Holy of Holies and proclaim himself to be God, okay? So total blasphemy. This is the abomination of desolation. And so this suffering the wound is the question that comes up, that scholars like you would ask the question, does he actually die? Okay? Because here's how some would ask, it appears that he's duplicating what Jesus did so as to diminish Jesus and exalt himself. That we understand. Okay? The question that somebody has is, can Satan raise somebody from the dead? I mean, that is the ultimate of miracles. Can Satan do it? I don't know. Okay? Or to the degree, is it this? Does God allow him to do it so as to fulfill his plan? Is that a possibility? The answer is yes. Or is this the possibility, and I don't know, remember, Antichrist and Satan are lying wonders. They are great at deceit. Does it happen that it's a false resurrection, but to the world's understanding, it's what? It's real. I mean, what's the possibilities? I don't know. But he suffers this wound unto death. He dies, and it's appearing that he dies. Does he really physically die? Well, the conclusion is people accept that he physically dies. And so he comes back, and he's there. The world wonders after him, and they're impressed by him, and they're amazed. But he's not content. Look at the text. He doesn't want to be admired. What does he want to be? He wants to be adored. There's a big difference between people wondering after him and people worshiping him. And he's not satisfied with people that are, just impressed by him. He wants the world to be seeking after him and worshiping him, according to verses 3 and 4. And when they start worshiping him, who are they actually worshiping? Satan. They were actually worshiping Satan, who's behind them. So as they worship, they're worshiping Satan, the dragon. We go on. He receives verse 4. At the end of the passage, it says, who is like unto the beast? Who's able to make war with him? We already saw that in Daniel's prophecies, that he beats everybody. He wonderfully causes devastation and defeat. Okay, no one compared to him. He is given in verse 5, it says, there was given to him, key word, given. So somebody else is empowering. Given unto him a mouth that speaks great things, but also great blasphemies. Okay, and how long is this man then going to be ruling in this sector? 42 months. Okay, and so he goes through all this, and it's open, outrageous blasphemy. Everything that Daniel had already predicted. Total disregard for the God of the fathers, total disregard for the God of the Most High, everything that Daniel said. Now, just let me give you a suggestion for how this text unfolds, because we've gotten a lot of information so far. It seems that verses 3 and 5 do this. If I can use, this is the high point of this passage. Verses 3 and 5 through 5 are getting the idea he's powerful, he's worshipped, he's aggressive in war, a blasphemer. But then all of a sudden, God says he's limited. He's limited 42 months. And then what do the next verses do? They say the same thing about his blasphemy, his aggressive character, his anti-God. But in the meantime, don't forget, he's what? He's limited. So it seems like the text is saying, for all of his greatness, he's limited, and then it repeats his great evil, but keep in mind, he's limited. And so we have that, the next few verses emphasizing that same thing. He opens his mouth, and he speaks against God. He speaks against the tabernacle. He speaks against, who's the them that would be associated with God that dwell upon the earth? Okay, it could be, well, not us. We're going to be gone, but, okay. The Jews and anybody who's following and listening to 144,000 true prophets. So he's very anti anything associated with God. In fact, in verse 7 it says, and it highlights again, he makes war with the saints, and his goal is to overcome them. Okay, he successfully does slaughter some of the believers. We know that, Revelation 6. We know that he is persecuting. But not all of them are going to be able to be destroyed, though he's after the Jews. Because according to Revelation 12, when he comes after the Jews, many of them go into the wilderness, and what does God do? Okay, God hides them. God protects them. And when Satan comes after with the flood, God opens up the earth and swallows. So we've heard previously that God's going to protect a remnant. But now we're getting information about how it's so vicious. Not only from Satan, but his human partner is just absolutely going after these people. And then it says he's going to have power over all the kindreds, tongues, nations, and all that dwell upon the earth. What's that say to you? That he has power over, and it lists all these different phrases. What's that tell you about Antichrist? He's a universal ruler. Okay, it's all the simplicity is that he's got power and authority for a while, and even over those whose names are not written in the Lamb's Book of Life. In other words, the unsaved people. So he's got this world dictatorial point of position in the second 3.5 years, and it's highlighting it. But then he does something in the text, and he says something that catches your attention as he's giving you details. He all of a sudden says, if any man has something, if any man has an ear, what are you supposed to do with your ears? Okay, now this is showing up in the book of Revelation several times already. Okay, if any man has an ear, let him hear. Now, in the New Testament, it's 16 times up to this point that this phrase is showing up. Most of the time in the book of Revelation, there's another phrase added to it. If any man has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. But this time it doesn't say that. Why not? The churches aren't there, okay? They're not there. And he's just giving a warning to anybody living in that time period, listen up. Listen up, okay? And the warning that he's giving them is very simple. He says, he that leads into imprisonment shall go into imprisonment. He that kills with the sword, what's the ending of it? Will be killed or slain with that sword. Okay? What's the point? What is he saying? What is John, under the inspiration of the Spirit of God, saying to people living and reading this and experiencing this? What's he telling them? What's that? Somebody's saying something. He's talking, evil is going to face, what's that phrase? Whatsoever you sow. Okay, those who live by the sword Okay, he's repeating this. Because remember, what does the world say at this point? Who can make war with him? Okay, what's that? Yeah. And they're basically saying, from the people's point of view. Now, if you're a Christian, you've gotten saved during that time period, you're a converted Jew, could you be discouraged? You're under persecution, it's horrible, and you're hearing everybody say, Antichrist is God, and who can beat Antichrist? This passage is for you. This passage is a warning. It's comfort for the believers. It's a warning for the unsaved to, hey, get serious. It's basically saying Antichrist is going to come to his end, which has been stated multiple times already, that he's going to be successful, but for how long? A time, times, half a time, or 3.5 years, 42 months. It's always, and so then what happens? He that has put people into captivity, he's going to be beaten himself. Okay? He that kills, he's going to be taken out with the sword. So what he's talking about is the persecutors are going to suffer calamity. This is given so the saints who are being persecuted don't give up, and don't seek to say, we've got to do something to take him out. We've got to do something. They have to do exactly what God has told them time and time again. Vengeance is, okay? Do you remember the example of Jesus Christ? Okay? Hereunto were we called. Okay? The believers are suffering persecution at this time that he's writing. It could be the Neronian persecution. For even hereunto were you called, because Christ left us an example when it comes to how to handle suffering. He says, okay, Christ also suffered for us, leaving an example that we should follow in his steps. What do we do when we're facing trials and troubles and persecutions? One of the first things we do is we don't lie. We don't all of a sudden become hypocritical. Let no guile be found in your mouth. Okay? Did that happen to believers at times? That they would all of a sudden say, well, we can do a little bit of worship to Caesar, but when we say we worship you, Son, we'll mean S-O-N, Jesus. But we use the same terminology as everybody else who is worshiping Caesar. Did that happen? Historically, it became an issue in the first and second century. Yeah, the Donatists and all these different groups that had big issues with that. So don't become deceitful, okay? Who, when he was reviled, what are we supposed to do? If we're attacked, we're not supposed to attack back. Reviled, when he suffered, he threatened not. But what did he do? The last phrase. What did Jesus do? He committed himself to who? To God taking care and God dealing with it, that God would judge. What's he telling the believers to do in this text? He's saying to endure the suffering, because Antichrist, God will deal with him. His time is limited. It's been a set time that has been determined. And then he concludes with this phrase, this is the patience and the faith of the saints. What is? Enduring, remaining true during troublesome times. Okay, now we're talking about saints in that time period. Is it true for us in the difficult time period that we might face? That herein is faith and patience, that you are steadfast no matter what's happening. The answer is yes. Okay, so you have these people are to trust God even in the worst times, because God will overcome in the very end. So we wrap up with just a few thoughts. Okay, there's so many that we could throw out here. The church and the Jews are not the same entity. I'm going to repeat this time and time and time again, because there is the bulk of teaching that's coming over the internet is that we and the Jews are the same people. We are not. Okay, we are not. Okay, there is a distinction. Do we end up in the same place eventually? Yes, but we're not the chosen nation. We are the blank of Christ, the bride. Okay, there's a difference between them. So all the promises for the Jews that God is going to preserve a remnant, we don't have that same promise. in that regard, we have the promise we're going to be taken out of this time period. I am more thrilled that I have the promise we're not facing this. Okay? So, here we go. Just as God's prophecies have been fulfilled in the past, they're going to be fulfilled in the future. I mean, just as God has been and will be faithful to the Jews, his chosen people, he's going to be us because we are his chosen children. Okay? Let's do another statement. Whenever anyone other than God is worshiped, Satan is pleased and becomes the one that they are worshiping. This is a profound truth. Think about it. When we see other churches and religions, sometimes we go, well, that's kind of silly that they would do that. There is a far deeper spiritual activity going on than just, that's dumb, that's silly. There is actually worship being done in the spiritual realm. What do I say? That the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice is anything? I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they are actually sacrificing to what? Yeah. So when people in our society worship their little statues, they are actually worshiping, yeah. So this is serious, which says that these false religions are not innocent and harmless. They are spiritually corrupt and really bad. Let me take another statement here. As bad as we think things are getting right now, they are going to be far worse in the tribulation. God will allow evil to prosper. What's the key word? For a while. Why does he do that? Okay. Why does God allow our government to become so corrupt and immoral? Why is it happening? God's got a plan. God's got a plan, and this is happening to bring about his purposes. No matter how powerful evil becomes, God will defeat it. The key is in his timetable. Our timetable is wipe it out. Okay, that's not his timetable. Why is he being patient? Yeah, he's working for more people to come to get saved, okay? So while we're enjoying the opportunity, what's our burden? Reach out. We don't want people living this time period. Woo! Oh, I can't believe I got through that. Okay. Oh, my word. Oh, you guys are amazing. Thank you for having an ear and listening. Okay, let's get ready for the worship and singing and all those other good things.